Welcome to the Made in Africa podcast. I'm your host, Kemeshi Samuel, and today we have in the studio a very remarkable founder in person of Onyeka Nwobu. Thanks for doing this with us.
Hi, Samuel.
Amazing
really
to have you on the show.
Yeah.
And we're really grateful for Ifoma recommending, or should I say connecting us with you. Fantastic. So I'll just dive right into it very quickly. Because we think our childhood, right, and the environment in which we grow up in sort of like influences our lives a lot. Yeah. And our understanding and how we perceive the world around us. Yeah. Or the world at large, not just the world around us, exactly. Because you're only exposed, your thinking is shaped by what you've been exposed to, right? Okay. So would you say that your childhood influenced your current career path?
Yes, I would say so. And it's a very interesting question. Right. Now that I think about it, I was just reflecting on my primary school days. I was reflecting on my secondary school days. And I noticed like a pattern of, I mean, what I do now is I am in leadership, right? Okay. I am in education. So for those of you who don't know me, actually, let me start again.
That's very unlikely, though.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm a brand strategist. We'll go deeper into that. I'm a women leadership coach, and I am an educator, right? So, and I think about, especially when I look at all of these fields, right? Even the field of brand strategy, the field of coaching, the field of educating people, those are leadership. Those are fields that you have to understand the concept of leadership, right? To be able to do. Yeah. And I look at, my childhood days and how I think the way that when you understand leadership, you really know that it's about serving people, right? And I look at how I was that person. Like I wanted to serve, right? I didn't necessarily like worry about titles. So I'll give you an example. In school, we had secondary school, for instance, we would have like class prefects. We would have like head boy, head girl.
I was sports prefect.
Really? So we would have all those things, but like I was not concerned about that. So there was an instance where every time my history teacher couldn't make it, I would step in. I would step in for him. I would take his notes and I would teach. And that for me was like I was serving my classmates, right? Fantastic. Not necessarily that I didn't want the title of, I'm the class prefect, that kind of thing. So for me, I really think back about how it shaped me. Now, more from a familial point of view, I can see how me being the first daughter as well, that puts you in a position of leadership. You're supposed to lead people. Yes. You're supposed to lead people. You're supposed to lead your siblings. I lost my mom early, I lost my mom when I was 16. Wow. And so losing her meant like I became the mom, right? I had to step up a lot. So I look at how those experiences.
How many siblings do you have?
I have 5 siblings. Wow. Yeah. I have 5 siblings. Yeah. So I had to really step up. I had to become a leader. I had to leadership is not necessarily about toughening up, but you do have to have some type of mental resilience. And I see how that has shaped everything.
Fantastic. I know that in like Africa, right? Yeah. There's a lot of pressure on firstborns. Yeah. How have you been able to deal with that?
Well, people always think I'm the firstborn. I'm not the firstborn.
Really?
Yes, so I'm the first girl. Yeah. I'm the secondborn. Okay. But in an Igbo home, it's the equivalent. If you're the first daughter, you're almost like the second firstborn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot of pressure on the first son and the first daughter. So they call I'm forgetting the Igbo tag behind
Ada?
No, so the female is Ada, right? I'm forgetting the tag behind the first son. Okay. Yeah. So it put quite a lot of pressure on me. I think in my growing up, I've been able to refuse certain pressures that come from that title and realizing like I'm human before I'm first daughter, right? So
Fantastic. Okay, before DBD Global, right?
Yes.
Give us a little bit of your professional experience and I think higher education as well. Yeah. I understand that you and Ifoma went to Unilag.
Yes.
Amazing. Please tell us.
Yes. So I went to, secondary school was Air Force, so I went to a military school. And then after I went to University of Lagos, The interesting thing about going to University of Lagos for me was that I studied French.
Okay.
And in studying French, it also exposed me to the French school in Badagry. So I had a year in between where that full year we spent it in Badagry.
Amazing.
And then coming out of, my professional life started in school.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So I think right into my second year, I started working, and this came like it was by happenstance. And I think I should really draw the real story because I always start from when I became a social media manager.
Okay.
I tried modeling for the first time.
I'm not really surprised. I'm not really surprised. Yeah.
I tried modeling. Maybe this part will surprise you. I hated it. Yeah, I really hated it.
Why in particular though?
I think I would not say I don't do well with authority, but I don't do well with like professions where I have to necessarily like use my body. I like using my brain.
Yeah.
I'm someone who is very like, I'm very stimulated by brain usage. So it didn't feel right. It didn't go right, but it did give me an opportunity. So it gave me the opportunity to, because the people who I was working with, the fashion label I was working with, they are Italians, and so they had like a very rich network of people. So they brought in like they had a gathering of HNIs and executives, and I was able to meet one of the executives, and she worked at the time for a media company, one of the biggest media companies we have in Nigeria, CME, and they are the owners of Sound City, Spice TV, and the rest. So she was head of channel for Spice TV. So I pitched myself to her.
Wow. All the way back then.
All the way back then. I pitched myself to her because I already knew modeling was not what I wanted to do. And I was just like, I see this woman, I like the path she's on. I think she can maybe guide me. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew it was not modeling. And so she brought me in as a digital media manager, digital media intern, digital media and production intern. So that's where that started, right? And so I was really, really exposed to a lot of like from whether it was production majorly, and then I was doing a lot of social media content, planning, writing, scripting. I was scripting
all
for
this while in school.
All in school, yes. And so that opened the opportunity to others. So I started working with publications in the UK. I worked with publications in the US. I worked with publications in Indonesia as well. Wow, so there was me just writing for them and their platforms and covering events. I remember the publication from Indonesia, me like security spot with like Diola Segu. So she doesn't take interviews. So I met her like I was just going really hard like, I want to. And I think because of the brand I was building, we had somehow connected to her daughters. Yes. So I was building a brand with Ifoma. Slowly on the back end. So I connected, and I think also I had my professional life has been a melange of a lot of things. So there was now me for a while. I went to Cote d'Ivoire and I was a communications intern. So there was a lot of me like just interning as much as I could and being an associate as much as I could. Then
basically
learning basically. And what now happened was I found myself in the bank. Right. So
okay. Now this one is the one that shocked me. How long were you working at the bank for?
I was in the bank for slightly over a year. So I was there 1 year and a few more months. And while I was at the bank, I was content strategy. I was doing content strategy for them. And basically what you see, Fashion Weekend and Food and Drink have blown up now. But the beginning year, so the first ever, I supported the lead, the person who developed the magazine, the first magazine for Fashion Weekend. And then I ran the magazine. I was now lead editor for the second edition. And so that happened. The bank really exposed me. And I was just like, wow, is this life?
Amazing. So why did you leave?
I left because I think for me, I don't, how do I put it? People who don't know how to maximize talent won't have me for long.
Oh, wow.
I know a bit about, and we'll get to that part, I know a bit about everything about business, which means if you keep me, and I also don't like very technical roles. I don't thrive there. And so like, if you don't know how to maximize my strengths, I won't be there for long. So I think I've always had that, for some people say this about Gen Z, and I agree to an extent. They bounce around a lot, but I think it has to do with what is your personality type. So if you're more leadership oriented, you will bounce around a lot. If you look at like the career journey of people like Bozoma St. John, for instance. So Bozoma is a marketing executive in the United States, and she bounced around like Pepsi, Apple, Uber, Netflix, right? And you see that pattern is that ours is like so there's a second angle to it. It's like I like to build and then I go
and find
the next challenge.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that
Amazing.
I'm a builder.
Yeah.
I might not necessarily, I think the only thing that's challenged me to become a grower is my business. Yeah, so.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, you've definitely been around.
I've been around, and that's like half of the story. There was a part of me starting a sustainable fashion startup with Ifoma. So it's called Frugals. We did... It gathered a lot of attention, globally. So we had partnerships with Lagos Fashion Week, Global Fashion Exchange. We were becoming a thing in the sustainable fashion space because what we were doing is we're selling thrifted outfits, and we were also serving as a financial literacy platform for women.
There was no actual manufacturing and production going on. Okay.
There was sourcing. That sourcing is hard because of the fragmented chain. So after seeing what I did with Frugals, I was like, oh my gosh, branding is a thing, because it was the branding that really made it go viral. And I remember things really took off in the pandemic 2020.
Yeah, everyone was online.
Everyone was online. And so what we did was, it was the branding that held the business together. So we got a lot of really influential people in the fashion, beauty, business space to speak and just interact with the brand. Amazing. So that took off, and then we started finding the real problem, which is where Ifoma now diverted.
Exactly, I was going to say that. It's like, this is what informed Ifoma's new company. Yeah,
because
fantastic.
we did, logistics was such a hassle for us. And Ifoma then got the opportunity to start working in social commerce with her co-founder. Then she left, and they started building a logistics business, which also introduced me to logistics.
Oh, wow.
Because I had started setting up DBD then, and it was in its very early phases, but they were my first clients.
Wow.
So in being my first clients, I literally delved into the world of logistics. So their brand was literally non-existent at the time, right? And they were just making a pivot from social commerce to a logistics company. So I literally stayed with them, built it first year, went into the second year with them.
Wow.
And from there, I was now I think more in the consulting space. Focusing on branding for other companies alongside this. I dabbled in, agriculture, worked with clients in agriculture.
Wow. Oh my goodness. I mean, you can literally consult for any kind of company. Fantastic.
There was just a range of, it broadened the perspective. I'd had, prior to this, I think I skipped the part in my story where I worked with First Bank for a bit prior to Frugals. I worked with First Bank for a bit, consulted on their 125th anniversary. And then I moved into advertising, and I was there. So I went into advertising as a copywriter, but really moved quickly up to clients and brand management. And there I got to work with FMCG, right? So focused on that, built a portfolio with that. And then back to logistics now led me to after logistics there was also people then I started, it introduced me to the investment space. So I'm currently an advisory board member for a venture building company, investment firm in Ghana. And then that sort of led me down the path. In doing all of these things, I found that what I really was doing with everyone was educating people on things, right? I was educating them on how to grow their business with branding and strategy. And so I was like, you know what? I want to educate people. And that landed me in education.
Fantastic. So based off your journey that you shared with us, because I was of the mentality that young people need to stick to one thing and one place for a long time, right? To sort of build, should I say, domain expertise, right? And a network that you would leverage on eventually. But your professional experience, your journey has totally... So would you advise people now to like try out different things, at least while they're still very much young?
So I think at the core of it is the problem with people, the young people, is not that they're leaving the companies. I can give you lots of reasons why they're leaving the companies. The problem with young people is not having a heart of service. Now, what people would miss from my story is I spent a good, at least 6-7 years serving people. Whether I was bouncing around, it was in service. I wasn't building my business at the time. It was just like, hey, I want to serve you.
Yes.
Hey, I want to work with you. Hey, I want to build your business, right? And how can I do that? So I think that what I would say to people is not about, you can stay with somebody for 6 months and the impact they feel, how you build their business, how you serve them, it changes everything in their company. I think that's more important than the length of time, because you can have somebody who stays with you for 3 years and they're just sucking. They're just sucking. They're not adding to the business. They're not really changing anything. They're not innovating in the company. So I think that's just sticking to their job description. We have a lot of those people, and you now realize that it's a really bad mindset, because when you have people who just want to collect salary from you, I've said no to salary. I've said no to certain clients that wanted to pay me money, because I realized that I was not going to serve them in the real way that would help them grow. And I said no to it. So you need more. To young people, I would say, develop everybody's path is very different. And maybe we can talk about why these young people leave and what the older people actually need to do to keep them. But I would say for young people, just develop a heart of service. Your first few years should be spent serving people. That's how you're even going to learn how to do, if you want to come out on your own. That's how the reason why I can run a business because of what I saw.
I've had this conversation with so many different like founders, and they've spoken about how, I don't know, how do I word it? How most young people, right, only care about the money. Like you said. And very often we found companies that have closed, startups, right, despite raising like incredible amounts of money. Because they did not pass through the system. Maybe they were there for a very short while time, and then they didn't give their hearts to it. They didn't take this as like their business. Obviously, when you get yours, because you haven't built the capacity, you haven't built the spirit, the passion, the grit that is needed to actually run a business, you'll find out that those businesses eventually close. So, and you know, when I was younger, many of what older people used to say, I used to think it was rubbish. But as I've gotten older, I found that almost 9 out of 10 times, they are usually very correct. And I just wish more young people would like listen to older people. And to your point about like the founders, they are finding that a lot of people, now I want to speak to maybe younger founders. This problem is very multi-layered. There's the problem with older founders, there's the problem with younger founders. With younger founders, the problem is they don't, of course people are going to just want money. And I feel like, first of all, don't be mad at people for wanting money. As in, it's not bad. It's not really bad.
The reason why they only want money is because a lot of founders are not leaders. When you're not a leader, you can't sell people a vision. And if you can't sell people a vision, they can't buy into what does not exist. And when they don't buy into it, because I hear founders say this, but I don't have the same problem. And I'm not funded by anybody. And people stay and people work with me. And people build I even have flexible arrangements with people. There's up and downsides to all of these things, but like the point is, I have people who are committed. Whether we're talking about money or not, I have people who are committed. And that comes with, you have to be a leader. For people to want more than money. So,
So it's your ability to sell the vision.
Yes.
And I think that's sort of like trickles down into the recruitment and hiring process.
Of course.
Because if you cannot, from the get-go, identify if this person is a fit in terms of, do they align with the vision
you're going
after? Interesting.
You do even have vision.
Exactly.
If you don't have vision, how are you going to,
exactly,
measure that?
Are you only after the money?
The money, yes.
But see, being after the money is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yes,
though.
I agree.
But you can be after the money, but understand that for you to get that money, you have to solve this problem.
You have to solve a problem.
Exactly.
I agree.
So I just want to get that out there. So fantastic. Now you've gone through, should I say, all these different positions in these different companies.
Yeah.
At what point did you think, okay, I think I should start an actual branding agency? Yeah.
I would say it was after Frugals.
Okay.
Yes. So after Frugals, I was like, oh my gosh, I did a thing. Like people were using Frugals in their master's thesis.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah.
Crazy.
They were using us as case studies, and I was just
Amazing.
like, oh my god, that's a huge thing. I think I want to replicate this, right? Like for more people. And that was where like I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start an agency. But I don't think I understood the full implications of me saying
right. I was going to ask, like, it was just you, right? So what were like the first few months like for you?
So complete transparency is I had lost my money in a very bad investment prior to starting DBD. And I think I was left with only like maybe 300,000.
Wow.
I did the craziest
Was this
thing.
investment in like a startup?
No.
Okay.
No.
Right.
It was a personal investment.
Okay.
And I remember just thinking, I'm Christian, so I sat down with God. I was like, what should I do? God was like, go and hire. I was like,
what?
It's 300K.
Which one? Yeah.
300,000. Like, it's like, go and hire. And I found it's again about the thing about being a leader. I found someone who was able to come on and like she was. And one thing about me, like being a leader means like you're also coaching people. So the problem with a lot of founders is they want ready-made people.
People, exactly, yeah.
I only became this because people took a bet on me with zero experience. Every time you can see my history was literally, I was always placed in a setting that made me feel like I was fish out of water. So I didn't know anything about investment. I didn't know about finance, banking. I didn't know But like people would just, come in. They would train you.
Wow.
And so I think that whole what's it called? It helped me. That whole mindset of I can bring somebody in. I'm a really good teacher.
I can tell. I can actually tell.
A really good teacher. So I know how to. And another thing about being a really good teacher is like you need to know how to streamline your thoughts and communicate it to people clearly. And so I was able to do that. Not necessarily in the best way. I'm much better now. But then it was just like I would know how to say, we need to do this. We need to do that. We need to do that. Okay, anybody that works with me, you are never without a guide. You are never without a guide.
You're never flying blind.
You are never flying blind. And now that we have grown, there's so much documentation that there's stuff to help you do stuff, right? So I made my first hire.
Give us timeline. This was when?
This was in 2021?
Oh wow! Okay. Right after the pandemic. When everybody was looking for money.
Wow. Okay. And so like I made my first hire. I made another hire on 300K.
Wow.
And then I started like the money started coming in little. Like first clients would give you like maybe replace that 300K that you spent the next client and things like that. So the money started coming up.
How did that feel? Getting the first payment from your first client.
I was like,
what was that feeling like?
I was like, oh my god,
it's definitely working.
I can make money.
Wow.
Like, there's one thing
get
to
that
like.
Feeling,
So the problem is like, a lot of people can ask for money. A lot of people can't make money.
True.
A lot of people say like, oh, I've learned this skill, so now I'm charging this. Okay, cool. So like practically, how are you going to make the person that you're billing money?
Okay.
Are you the first? So I learned to be the first source of money. I can bring in money. I'm the first. Money flows through me. That's literally how.
That's big flex. Money flows through me. Wow. Right? So, it's like I have to start working towards that one now.
So that's why I think like for my business as well, like I'm not a like, oh, let me go and get an investment because I know how to, where's the source of money? I'm close to that source.
Fantastic.
So when that happened, I was just like, oh my god, like it works. Like I can actually like charge.
You know what? How did you settle on the name DBD Global?
Okay, so DBD, I'm very in tune with God. I have a very strong spiritual life, if I can say that myself. And at that time, if I wasn't even this strong spiritually, but I was forming my relationship with God and talking to Him a lot. And He gave me the name the year before, Disruptive by Design. Yeah, so that's what DBD means. And when he gave that to me, I was just like, this makes so much sense because it described me as a person. Like, I'm designed to disrupt systems. And I was just like, well,
that's fantastic. That's a very fantastic name. Do you think, I don't want us to get too spiritual, right? But I feel people need to believe in like some like higher power to like draw strength and inspiration from. Do you think that having that has sort of like
giving me an advantage?
Exactly,
I believe so.
Like when things are so tough, you can hold on to this.
I can hold on to that. I really believe that because you do business. It's business. Like every day you're fighting for in Nigeria and in this time and age for you not to be panicked, right? Because every day you wake up to something that literally throws you off balance. And to have that steadiness, you have to have some spiritual grounding. So amazing. So tell us very quickly. You've worked with so many different brands, companies, even should I say incumbents, like in established industries like banking and stuff. What is, and I want us to narrow it down to like to the startup world. Right. What is some of the like branding mistakes you see founders make? The most, I think, first of all, the branding mistake is not educating themselves about branding. So they don't have education.
What is branding? Let's even start from there. Let's start from the basics.
Branding, it would be helpful to think of branding as a concept that involves business and creativity, which is how to make money and how to solve problems. That's really what branding. And branding is the process of going through that. How am I making money, right? How am I solving people's problems in a way that, how do I put it now? In a way that is creative or appealing to them. In a way that shows them that you understand their mind and what they need.
Oh, wow.
That's really what branding is. So when we say, they lack education in branding, the problem is they are of an orientation that even I am in branding. And every year I have to refresh what really is branding. And it keeps coming together. I'm not the only one. Everyone who's a brand strategist goes through this process. We've gotten to a point where we as brand strategists, we now agree, because we've seen the scope of our work. We now agree that in the next few years, branding is going to be a word that is synonymous to business, brand. So when they say brand, you hear business. When they say business, you hear brand. So they don't...
I think it actually is already.
So they don't educate themselves. And what happens is, if you come from the orientation that branding is about just creativity, and then inside that level of creativity, all you think about is visual design.
Okay.
You have a problem.
That is a very short-sighted.
Yes, you have
and
a
most
problem.
founders,
that's all they see. So if when you're talking about branding, people think visuals. I'm just like, but what you don't understand about branding is you first have to. There's so many internals before even when we talk about design. I don't want to go too deep into that. But there's internal sides of branding that need to be fixed or addressed before you start talking about visual. For instance, inside the organization, when you align on what am I trying to build, what mission am I going on, what is the purpose of this business, you are branding. When you align on who is my target audience, what makes them tick, where do they hang out, what are their problems, how does my solution...
How do they talk?
Very important. Very important. You are branding. So when you skip all of those and you land that visual...
So it starts from inside.
Inside,
So it starts from inside, right? Branding.
Yes.
I think for we know Apple, for example, like they're like the epitome of branding, right?
A lot of other companies, but yes, Apple is the most known. Yes.
No, I'm a very tech inclined person, so obviously I'm going to towards Apple. But what I'm getting at is they built such a powerful brand, right? That it's even very difficult for people to say anything negative about the brand, even if it is glaring.
Yep.
So that is really how important branding is.
Yes.
But do you think that level of branding, or should I say quality of a brand, is something that can be developed outside of traditional like business processes? The quality of your products, quality of customer service, all of those things, do they tie into branding? Or branding is just you hiring an agency to fix your image outside without fixing the back end?
I think I want to understand the question better.
Yeah, okay. So do you think fixing the back end fixes the front end? That is, if your product is great, if people are speaking well about your product, your service, your branding automatically improves. Is that how it works?
I'm smiling because you said product, and it's very interesting. I'm going to come back to that.
Okay.
So think about it like this. Have you read Atomic Habits?
Yeah, I have,
So you heard when he said, I think he was alluding to formation of habits does not start with, like, fixing a problem. It's not about being goal-oriented. You sort of have to start with identity. You need to really redesign your identity. And what he was trying to say in summary is really the point he was trying to make is the systems of solving problems does not start from what you're seeing. It starts from what you're not seeing.
Oh, wow.
So we run a school where people learn branding and strategy. And what is incorporated to, in fact, all of my programs, whether it's about branding and strategy or it's about leadership, I always start with mind reframes. The reason why I start with mind reframes is that if I don't get a mental barrier out, anything I say to you, as good as it looks, is not going to permeate inside. And there's going to be no change. So I need to first remove. So what I'm trying to say is, you have to fix back end, anything back end. Think about it, now that you're talking about products. Now, do we just see the screen, or do engineers have to do some coding?
They have to do some coding.
That's back end. It's the same thing. There's nothing in life that works outside. So a lady, let's make it very practical. A lady can be very beautiful, very attractive, and still, when you come around her, you're repelled.
By her character.
Because her character. What makes the person beautiful to you, you now realize is not how she looks.
So, I mean, that's sort of like, that answers my question but I just want to like stress a bit on it. So you can hire like an agency and pay them a ton of money to like work on that public image. But then you cannot retain customers when they come in.
And the problem is not an agency. Is, do you know what agency to hire at what time? So people make this mistake. I just came new to markets. I go and I hire either a PR agency or an advertising agency. Wrong moves. You need a brand strategy agency.
Wow. For a new company
that's coming, whether you're a new company that's coming out or you're an existing company that has a new business line. New products to launch, you need a brand strategy agency first. The conflict is that if the brand strategy agency can now do everything the PR agency and ad agency can do, you don't need those people.
You don't need them anymore. Oh, interesting.
That's now the caveat. But what you need, and so what that means is that you going to a PR agency is like, they'll put you in the news.
That's all. You
going to an ad agency is like, they'll make you look dope on like a billboard. No, I've worked in advertising. Like, we are not talking about how much we're making the company. When you come to a brand strategy agency, they are looking at you and saying, what's your business model design? Inside the organization, our process inside is like, we go through first of all, the founders, the leadership team, we have to sit with them and really understand certain things. Because for me so branding is like literally you have to immerse yourself in somebody's world to come out and say, okay, I think it's what you're trying to birth. Now help you push. That's literally what it is.
So now, let's like, should I say layer it, like break down the layers. So there's the public image of the company. There's management. Obviously, management needs to be trained. Right? Because they are the face of the company. Do you think those at the bottom of the pyramid,
Yes.
the employees, the staff also need to be worked on.
Yes. Oh, I feel like it's hard to say who is more important. It's actually very hard because who are the people, management, you're here, which means you're only interacting here. These people here are interacting with a lot more people.
Yeah.
They are literally they are the ones that, it's like they are walking billboards.
Yeah.
They are the advocates, ambassadors. If you don't work on them, no matter what you're building here, people are just going to be like, it's just like Apple has Apple University for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
Why do they have Apple University? Because you have to become like Steve Jobs.
Wow.
You have to become like Johnny Ives. You do have to become like those people.
Amazing. So, do you take, should I say, how do I phrase this? What do you look for in a client?
It's a very good question.
Yeah.
I would say a client who's first of all open to learning.
Okay.
That's the most important part.
Okay.
If you know it all, I can't help you. No, if you know everything, might as well, because I don't know everything.
Yeah.
Right? So if you know everything, that's good.
Yeah.
I think respect. So there's because of what we do, and which is why I focused on education. I really don't have. I like to work and see impact. I really don't have the time to debate my expertise with you.
Okay.
So when you do something like branding that is it's a craft that is very mental. It's not like, you can code.
Yeah.
People question your expertise. People try to teach you what you know, what you spend 10 years learning.
Wow.
And I'm just like, I'm not here to debate whether or not I know what I'm saying, which is why I started building companies, because I'm just like, watch what happens.
These ones.
Yeah. So for me, it's willingness to learn, respect. And I think under respect, I'll pull out respect, how much you are willing to pay me.
Yeah.
When I tell you my fee. How
exactly.
open you are to me say my fee to you shows me whether you respect me or not. So that respect is very two-pronged. It's like respecting my expertise and respecting me enough to understand that I am charging my worth.
Yeah. Have you ever been paid in form of equity before?
Yes.
Okay. So you're always open to that?
I'm open to equity, but I cannot eat equity. Like
money must change
hands. I'm open to equity, and the one thing about being a brand strategist is you're a long-term thinker. That's what happens to you. But I've had to also configure my brain to understand that there's times to demand long-term, to look long-term, and there's times to look shorter or mid-term, what happens. And my thing is, like, if my own sister who became my client can pay me, you don't have any excuse. You don't have any reason to not pay me.
That makes so much sense. What's when a company approaches you, right? We need a brand strategist.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a situation whereby you turned down a client?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because sometimes so people say a lot of things, and you first have to check the orientation of what do you mean you need a brand strategist? Who is a brand strategist to you? And when you hear what that person says, it tells you, hey, I'm looking for... So the thing about being a brand strategist is you're part psychologist. So in getting in conversation with people, my job is really to ask questions. When you ask questions, it reveals what that person is really trying to say to you. And when you hear that, you're like, oh, you need an ad firm, you mean? You know.
Wow.
Or you need a designer.
At this stage now, what's the size of your team?
The company is very... I will not say it's dynamic, but if you think about it like a holding company, right? So we have DBD, we have SIT, and we have DLD. DLD is still cooking.
Yeah. Would love to see.
And DBD literally works on a network matrix, which is like we have partners that we work with. So there's no what is the size of that team. It depends on the project, the size of the project.
Right.
The functional team, however, is maybe 4 core people, including myself, and 2 contractors. Yeah.
Amazing. So do you work hands-on on every project that you take in?
I work hands-on for SIT because that's the real business. As far as I'm concerned. That's the real business. Talk about agency or project-based things. I'm a huge delegator for all of those things.
And that's a very big part of leadership, actually. I struggled. In fact, I struggled with any form of leadership growing up.
Yeah.
I would run away from any position they gave to me. Even the sports prefect I was given then, I ran away from it. But when I entered like the corporate world initially, a few weeks into it, because my current company, First Founders, right?
Yeah.
Although I'm a co-founder, I did not come in as a co-founder.
Right.
A few weeks into the company, my partner now wanted me to take up a particular position. I was like, no, no way. I was not going to do anything like that because I don't like stepping on people's toes. I just came in. There's no how you want to paint it that this person will not be offended. And if this person is still in the company, we are going to gradually start building this toxicity. And I was like, no way.
I'm the opposite. Bring the conflict.
Oh my goodness.
I know I'm the opposite. Yes. I'm not a fighter. We will resolve it.
Okay, that's fantastic. I'm not a fighter. Exactly,
I have the advantage of having knowledge on principles of psychology. So I understand people a lot. So it helps me with like people management. I'm like, you will not. My aim is not for us to become buddies. My aim is for us to become cordial.
Exactly.
And we will work together.
Just do the job.
And I love what you said about like being like your partner now, like seeing that in like to be a founder. One thing that has not been said to other founders is that to be a founder, you need to train your eye to see people. That in itself is a spiritual gift, but you need to train your eye to see people. When you see people, because the same thing is happening with me. Right now, you asked about where I'm hands-on, but I'm already making like succession plans in terms of I'm grooming people who will now be CEOs of my company. And they are the ones like running the things with me now. But like, I'm like, a few years from now, I want to remove, it's not even a few years, let me just say faster than I am imagining. I want to remove them because I have so many things, so many expressions. And I would like to groom people to do like I said, I'm not a very technical person, right? Literally, I think the only work I will spend a lot more time doing is in the learning and developing curriculums. So it's in the...
Sorry, let's not take what you can mention from there.
Okay. Yeah, so the only thing I will spend a lot more time doing for the foreseeable future, this would be years I will still be doing it, is developing curriculums, writing, developing programs, like actually doing because that's how I learn about what I do. Right. So that's the only hands-on thing that I'm going to keep doing, and which is why I really see myself as like head of learning at my company. Not necessarily like I mean I'm the CEO now, but after a few years it won't be that anymore.
So I want to incorporate the conversation we're having.
Right.
So you've spoken a lot about learning, right, and educating people. What have you noticed particularly here in Nigeria when it comes to like not just traditional education like school, secondary school, but also in the startup space, like a gap in what you think founders should have known going into the business or just basically their attitude towards learning and education as a whole?
I think there is a disregard for the importance of education. I think people think that, oh, I went to MIT, so I'm educated. No, you're not. Yeah, you learned what was relevant there. And to be honest, because every time we have to do taking a new cohort, we have to revise the curriculum. I'm worried about what is in curriculums of existing school.
All right. So as we wind down, what are some of the challenges you've noticed in your line of business? Both internally within the company and like externally as well.
I'll speak to external. Any new change that happens in terms of what skills are in demand sort of influences or affects how we need to communicate to people. And that means like we are now getting into a place where like we need like to stay on. So I would say yes, any new trends in terms of skills, and then because we play in the technology space as well. Anything that happens in the investment space also is a huge influencing factor. Anything that happens economically is a huge influencing factor. So because we also really shifted our perspective to the global space. So we don't just sell to people locally. And that has meant that if the whole world is in a recession, it will affect the business, right? So that's looking at it from a macro angle, right? And looking at like what skills are in demand. Like for instance, now there's the rise of AI.
I was going to come to that actually.
There's that happening now. But what we're seeing is we're still at an advantage because what we teach is strategy and branding. And those are things that anybody who uses AI, you know that AI cannot give you that.
It needs a lot of that human element.
But what that means is it just really influences how do we now market our products. That's something that's very important for us to take.
For companies to see how relevant
it is, yes. And then the part internally, which is what the business is literally like a business that is solving its own problems. Where I started this whole education thing was because if you know anything about brand strategy, it is not a local sports. It's not a local skill. Like it's not. It doesn't even appeal locally, right? So you're not you're not playing a local game. And what that means is like it took me a long time to figure out that I'm an anomaly because I'm someone who has developed a skill that you will find people with these skills, like because we did the research and it showed us that they are majorly, people with my skills are majorly in the US, they're in the UK.
True, very true. Very true.
They
very few here.
Very few here. They're in India. We don't see them here. And so that was a big problem for the business because people, like, we're even talking about basic education. They don't know it. Not talk of brand strategy. You know. So what that meant was that we had to build that school. It was important. The school was important for the growth of the business because I needed to literally transfer everything I knew to people, right? And so in building that has made like I don't necessarily like source for talent. Like I have talents. I have a network. I have a community of talents that I've trained and I'm training. So they know what I know and they can keep me running the business.
You know, speaking on this AI trend, I was going to ask that, is it a good idea for businesses, companies to jump on like trends every time they come? I mean, obviously the trend has to make sense for your business. Now, but AI cuts across almost everything. So do you think everybody should start positioning for that and that communicating that in their like social media, their messaging that we have something to do with AI right now?
I think that you should not just jump on trends. The thing about us and AI is I spent the whole of last year studying AI. What was happening? What was its relevance to me as a brand strategist? What is relevance to my company? What threat does it pose to my company? And I realized that AI is more on my side. It's more on my side because at the end of the day, we spoke about technology and education. If we're going to do anything with technology, we need AI as an education company, right? But then what I noticed is like, yes, you need to, as much as you don't jump on the trend, you need to pay attention to the trend. To understand, it's not pay attention, it's more, you need to do your research and really understand how it affects you and your business. And when you now learn how it affects you and your business, that determines whether you communicate, how you communicate it, or whether you will. I think what it is about you saying that AI cuts across everything, it does. And as someone who is I'm very anti-trends or like jumping on trends, I can say that AI is a thing that is here to stay because
it's not going anywhere.
And the thing about AI is like AI requires, there's levels of it in terms of there's AI adoption, which your mind has to first start to adopt AI for you to now understand that, okay, because for me, now I think about it, I don't necessarily fret about setting roles in my company. Because I have AI. So for instance, I can like, people
content
are looking for, it's not even, no, so content still needs people.
Okay.
I'll say content still needs people. If not, like, we will not be here. We'll find AI to do.
No, you don't, actually, have you seen the latest like videos that ChatGPT's video generation to Sana or something. The last few videos that they dropped are the most realistic things ever.
We can still tell. We can still tell. I go on people like I'm literally social listening and like I'm observing people's pages. I see people who generate their images with AI and AI tries to give you the most realistic version of what it can give you. If you look closely, I'm just like, that doesn't look very human.
That's what I'm getting at. So if we look at imagine the next decade. What we'll be talking about.
What we'll be talking about. I think that at the end of the day, because humanity in itself comes with, it's just like a human being. You see a human being and you think like, oh, you have glass skin or like whatever. If a person doesn't have scars, like humanity has some flaw to it. And I think it's that flaw, that realness that people are really gravitate towards. So whatever AI is going to give you is going to be something that looks flawless, perfect. The human brain, this is a psychology thing. The human brain repels perfection.
True, actually.
AI cannot win and then win all of us.
All of us,
It can't. It has to work in tandem with us. So I would say like not in terms of content creation for me, but more like it's a big helper for research.
True.
Yeah, and if you're able to systemize your research process, it is the perfect helper.
Exactly, So definitely streamlines the entire process. What is it like managing people?
I love people. I love people. I have developed my people management muscle. I have learned to delegate as well. So it really helps. So managing people for me is like, again, I have a huge advantage with psychology. And because I understand people personality types, I know who fits. It's just like how your partner saw you and you like, COO, he can do this. I know how to do that. And then there's now that spiritual thing I talked about, seeing people. I know how to say like, this person makes good for this. Most times I'm never wrong. Most times I'm never wrong. That's a very
wonderful skill for anybody to have, especially founders.
Because
I think, and especially for founders in the earliest stages of the company, because the type of people that come into the company then determine how the company will run. Exactly.
Yes, I agree.
Their influence stays for long.
Whether or not it will grow is determined by...
That's fantastic. All right, final question.
Okay.
I saw your tattoos and I was very intrigued. What do they mean?
So this means God is greater than my highs and my lows. And I think that my tattoos were, at the time in which I was getting them, I was being an impulsive person. It was during the pandemic. I was like, this feels like I'm so bored. Let's do something new. I was looking for excitement. But I did not know that they would become prophetic tattoos. Like it was literally, they're all prophetic because now I'm an entrepreneur.
Is it a language?
Yes, called something. I don't remember. But now this now says God is greater than my highs and my lows. And I realized that being an entrepreneur, it's lots of highs and lows.
Definitely.
And how this is what anchors me. God being greater than them anchors me. And then I have others, right? This says God is within her, she will not fall. I cannot tell you how these tattoos have held me, like, and it's not even about them being on my skin. It's literally like, because I have them, I remember their Bible verses. It's ingrained in my head, you know. So they're very prophetic in a...
I love that. I think I was going to ask, now last question.
Yes, second last question.
So we've seen like the world shift, especially in Nigeria, in terms of like mentality and what we think is acceptable in the corporate world and what we think is not acceptable in this world. So I love that we've come this far as a society. Although there are still many, many things that we need to break out of.
I don't think we've come so far. I really don't agree. It seems like we've come so far because of the freedom and liberty that social media gives us. In reality, things are still very much as they were before. Meaning, for instance, if I want to go and talk with... So I know you have to know your audience, right? if I'm going where there are Europeans, for instance, I don't mind.
Yeah,
I can go with something that doesn't cover up my body like this. For instance, in coming here now, I know you're going to be showing to an African audience.
Exactly.
Right? Like, I know you're showing to an African audience. Now, it's not that I might be saying all of the right things. Yeah. I might be making strong points.
Exactly. But
they will just focus on she has tattoos, and they'll be like, no.
Oh, wow.
They won't. They will repel everything that you're trying to say. So I think like the corporate world, I'll be very honest, it's something you have to approach with wisdom. Yeah, like when I have like meetings and like, oh, I'm going to like maybe where there's going to be government people or like there's going to be like older people in corporate space. You definitely just cover up your tattoos and all of that.
That makes sense.
But I don't think much has changed. People still profile and stereotype.
Yeah, true. So I would like to end this on the notes where you said highs and lows.
Yes.
A big part of entrepreneurship really is, and if you notice, the lows are often more than the highs. But when the highs come, they are just that motivation you need to keep going. Fantastic. Wonderful conversation with you, Onyeka.
Thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun.
I love it. That's been it on this week's episode, guys. I'm your host, Kemeshi Samuel, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Amazing.